Karen's fake SWAT kicked my door. Real SWAT zip-tied them. You don't expect a war to start at your front door, especially not in a cul-de-sac where the biggest drama used to be whose dog pooped where. But I learned real quick, peace is just a mask people wear when no one's challenged their power. My name is Darius Wynn. I'm 39, a former tactical medic, and I moved to the sleepy neighborhood of Eagle Ridge to heal mentally and physically. Turns out healing would have to wait, because the moment I refused to bow to a woman named Karen Leary and her fake HOA, my life became a battlefield. And one morning, a group of men in fake tactical gear kicked in my front door. But they didn't know the real SWAT unit was already watching them. Eagle Ridge wasn't gated, but you wouldn't know it from how Karen ran it. She was the HOA president of an HOA that didn't legally exist. There were no county filings, no charter, no board. But that didn't stop her from collecting compliance fees, enforcing curfews, and patrolling in a black SUV with Eagle Ridge security enforcement stamped in bold white vinyl on the sides. At first, I ignored her. I didn't move here for a fight. I moved here after my last deployment left shrapnel in my leg and ghosts in my sleep. I wanted quiet, trees, time to be human again. But Karen, she didn't care about that. She cared about control. It started small. A note taped to my door. You've been warned about unauthorized vegetation. Remove the lavender bush by 6:00 p.m. or face consequences. Lavender, a plant my late wife had loved. A memorial. Really? I tore up the note, left the bush, didn't say a word. Then came the second strike. Excessive water usage detected. You are now under HOA audit. I laughed. I wasn't even on city water. I had a self-contained cistern. But then came a man in a vest, sunglasses, tactical boots, radio on his shoulder. Looked ex-military, but everything about him was off. He stood at the edge of my driveway, arms folded, watching me mow. You win, he asked. Yeah, you a cop, Eagle Ridge Enforcement. Not a real thing? You'll want to take this seriously. And that's when I knew. Karen wasn't playing housewife. She was building an army. It happened at 5:47 a.m. Still dark, still quiet. I was asleep on the downstairs couch habit from my medic days when I heard the first bang, then the second, then the door caved in. 6 men, all in black. Vests marked HOA Tactical Unit, fake badges, knee pads. One had a ballistic shield. One had a damn taser. Get on the ground, one shouted. Hands where we can see them. They moved like they'd watched YouTube videos of real entries, but it was clumsy, loud, unprofessional. I didn't move, didn't panic, because what they didn't know was that I had a silent alarm, a direct link, and someone had already answered. The man with the shield stepped forward, barking commands like he was on a movie set. I didn't move, not because I was frozen, but because I'd already counted 6 voices, 6 weapons, and 6 poorly placed boot prints on my floor. Their formation was garbage. Their gear mismatched. Their breathing erratic. These weren't professionals. They were actors in a costume drama about power. And I'd lived through real war. These men didn't scare me, but I let them believe I was afraid, because behind their noise was something else. The silent hum of justice coming. 2 weeks earlier, after a heated HOA hearing Karen tried to host in a church basement, I had filed a formal complaint with the county sheriff's office. I brought documents, fake citations, videos of patrols, statements from neighbors scared into paying. Sheriff Whitlock, an old school but sharp man, took one look at the folder and said, "She's walking a thin line toward domestic terrorism." Turns out I wasn't the first. Her group had harassed a woman with lupus over the color of her curtains. They threatened a man for parking his disabled son's van on the curb. Karen's goons slashed tires, snatched mail, and even disabled security cameras in one case. The sheriff opened a quiet investigation, and since I had tactical training, I became the bait. So when the fake SWAT kicked in my door, I'd already triggered the silent alarm. A foot switch under my end table sent a ping to my personal satellite unit linked to a sheriff's task force waiting 2 blocks away. They'd told me stay alive for 60 seconds. We'll take it from there. The man closest to me shouted again. Down, down, I went to one knee slowly, hands up, but my eyes stayed forward. I saw the fear behind their shades. These weren't cops. They weren't even rent-a-cops. They were Karen's foot soldiers, civilians in tactical cosplay, and they were about to meet real law enforcement. The flashbangs hit first two pops like cannon fire in the driveway. The fake officers spun around, startled, guns shaking. Then came the real breach, smooth, quiet, and absolute. Three real SWAT operators flowed in through the side entrance like smoke. One moved toward me. Darius, stay low, he whispered. I nodded. Then chaos. Get on the ground, drop. The weapon hands up, now fake gear hit the tile. One man screamed and tried to run, made it 5 feet before being tackled into my living room bookshelf. Another tried to pull a taser and got zip-tied so fast his hand didn't even finish the motion. And Karen. She was outside in a bathrobe, screaming. I stepped out behind the officers. Karen stood on my lawn, flanked by two of her remaining commanders, one holding a clipboard, the other wearing a GoPro harness. She pointed at me and shrieked, "That's the man, he's a threat. He's operating a dangerous facility without HOA clearance. That's our jurisdiction." Sheriff Whitlock emerged from behind his cruiser. He didn't say a word, just walked up, held out a folder, and flipped it open. Inside, fraudulent notices, a fake HOA charter, payment receipts to her personal Venmo. Karen's mouth moved. No sound came out. Then Whitlock looked her square in the eyes. You called a fake SWAT unit on a decorated combat medic in the middle of the night? You escalated harassment into an armed felony. She started crying. Fake at first, then panic took over. I didn't know, they told me Kyle said it would be, but the sheriff raised a hand. Karen Leary, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit a felony, impersonation of law enforcement, criminal trespass, and attempted assault with a deadly weapon. She dropped to her knees on my lawn. Neighbors started coming out, phones in hand, recording. Mrs. Alvarado from across the street muttered, "About damn time," a teenage boy shouted. "You're the real SWAT, just arrested the fake HOA," and the whole neighborhood, once scared, once silent, stood watching as Karen and her crew were cuffed and led to waiting cruisers. The image stuck in my mind. 6 grown adults in fake tactical vests, zip-tied and shaking, being loaded into sheriff vans under the porch lights of a man they tried to silence. Because what Karen had done, it wasn't just about me. It was about every person she and her HOA SWAT had bullied, stalked, fined, and gaslit. Her house wasn't just a home, it was a command center. And inside was everything the task force needed to bring her entire empire down. The raid on Karen's headquarters was clinical. By 7:01 a.m., a full county warrant was signed. By 8:15, the forensic unit rolled up to her pristine colonial with a full evidence team. It looked like a campaign headquarters got married to a doomsday prepper's bunker. Every room was rigged for command, and every inch reeked of delusions and domination. What they found in Karen's house was staggering. Wall maps marked with zones of disobedience, color-coded profiles of problem residents, complete with photos, addresses, and personal notes. A converted garage packed with fake uniforms, tactical vests, plastic badge laminators, and official HOA letterheads. 2 deactivated tasers, 1 live stun baton, 700+ digital files on her laptop detailing fines, incident reports, HOA patrol routes, and handwritten notes about retaking control of the neighborhood narrative. And then came the videos, body cam style footage from her officers filming residents in their homes, peeking over fences, even following cars down the road. Some had sound. Some had been edited with stock sound effects to make neighbors look aggressive. She had created a reality distortion machine, feeding herself and her enforcers a story where she was the lone savior in a collapsing suburban jungle. But to the rest of us, she was a tyrant with a printer and a power complex. The sheriff's office called an emergency press conference. Sheriff Whitlock stood firm at the podium with the evidence table flanking him, fake weapons, badges, printed manuals titled Suburban Order Enforcement, and a hard drive sealed in an evidence bag. This was not an HOA, he said. This was an organized effort to impersonate law enforcement, intimidate civilians, and extort thousands from unsuspecting homeowners. Reporters asked if this was an isolated incident. Whitlock shook his head. We've been contacted by 3 other counties since this morning. Karen Leary may have advised similar operations under the radar. We are treating this as an active regional threat investigation. With the arrest public and the fake HOA dissolved, people finally spoke. Mr. Jenkins, a retired Navy man, came forward and revealed Karen had fined him for military signage because he flew the U.S. flag with a POW MIA banner underneath. When he refused to pay, she sent her unit to his home to intimidate him into taking it down. A woman named Lena, whose brother is on the autism spectrum, testified that Karen's crew called code enforcement on them 5 times in a month, citing erratic behavior when her brother would sit on the lawn and rock. Every story felt like a slap to the face. Every voice was a wound reopened. But as they spoke, something else happened. People listened. What Karen had called a homeowners association was nothing more than a web of lies built on a fake charter, a mock board, and a newsletter riddled with made-up ordinances. But she'd collected real money, over $147,000 in total fines, fees, and compliance penalties. She funneled it through multiple Venmo accounts, PayPal, and even a cash app under the name Eagle Civic Security. Investigators froze all accounts. Some were linked to a luxury vacation Karen had taken in Aruba. Another had regular monthly payments to a private gym, which she called operational readiness training. That's when the charges started stacking. By the end of the week, she faced 13 counts of impersonating law enforcement, 9 counts of wire fraud, 6 counts of conspiracy, 4 charges of unlawful surveillance, 3 charges of assault, 1 count of felony racketeering. Her bail was denied. Kyle, the captain of her squad, took a plea deal in exchange for testifying. He cried through the entire statement, claimed Karen fed him fake state laws, promised him a leadership role in the first neighborhood militia of its kind. The judge cut him no slack. You terrorized your neighbors with a toy gun and a fake badge. I don't care what she promised. Kyle got 8 years. The neighborhood was breathing again. Kids played in driveways where tactical boots once stood. The flags went back up. One neighbor, an older lady named Ruth, planted wildflowers in the spot where Karen's SUV used to park and called it the free garden. I spent my days helping folks understand what actually happened. I showed up to council meetings, helped organize community watch real ones this time, unarmed, respectful, volunteer-based, and at every meeting, I reminded them justice isn't about who yells the loudest. It's about who stands the longest. 1 week later, a local veterans group donated a billboard at the entrance of the neighborhood. Big white letters on a green backdrop read, "Real community doesn't need a badge to protect itself." Below that, a simple line, "In honor of those who stood up, stood strong, and stood together." You'd think after fake cops kicked in my door and the real SWAT zip-tied them on my front lawn, things would quiet down. They didn't, because what Karen built wasn't just an operation, it was a mindset. And mindsets don't go away when you slap cuffs on the ringleader. They linger in silence, in whispers, in the people who sat at her table, wrote her rules, and now acted like they'd never heard of her. 3 weeks after her arrest, someone tried to firebomb my mailbox. Didn't succeed, just scorched the pole and melted the paint on the box. But that wasn't the point. The message was clear. You didn't kill the idea. Turns out, some of Karen's old officers had gone underground. She may have been the face, but they had bought into the fantasy too deeply to let it go that easily. Fake SWAT unit gone, but fake HOA loyalists still lurking. They didn't wear badges anymore. Now they wore smiles and used Facebook comments to try and rewrite the story. Karen wasn't perfect, but she kept things in order. Since when is neighborhood discipline a crime? This place has gone soft since the HOA was dissolved. Some even tried to start a new HOA, filed it under a new name, The Eagle Standards Committee. Same tactics, same intimidation, different branding. That's when I knew the job wasn't over. I didn't want to be a leader, but silence would only let rot return. So I took a stand again, filed a formal petition with the county to prevent any HOA from being legally formed without a verified community vote, at least 75% approval, and external legal oversight. Got 219 signatures in 48 hours. The next town hall, standing room only. I brought in lawyers, veteran advocates, and even a retired FBI field agent who had seen this kind of civilian paramilitary HOA scam before. He told the crowd you didn't just survive abuse. You dismantled a private militia hiding behind landscaping rules. That landed hard. People finally saw it for what it was. We didn't rebuild an HOA. We built a neighborhood accountability board. No fines, no enforcers, just people, rotating quarterly, whose sole mission was conflict resolution and communication. Every meeting was live streamed, every document public, every decision recorded. We created communal mediation sessions, a space for neighbors to handle disputes without fear, judgment, or fines. We brought in trauma counselors for elderly residents still scared to go outside after Karen's patrols. The Trujillos, an immigrant family who once hid their backyard grill because of smoke ordinance threats, now hosted block cookouts every Saturday. And Reggie, the man once zip-tied by Karen's goons for parking violations, became the lead safety coordinator for the new board. His safety vest bright orange. No badge. Just the words "Community First." The story had already made state news. But when the footage of the fake SWAT raid went viral, the nation took notice. CNN called. So did Good Morning America. Producers reached out for interviews. I didn't want to speak at first, but when I realized others were still living under these shadow HOAs in different towns, I agreed. I told our story, in full, no drama added, just truth. They kicked in my door because I planted lavender. That line hit home. Hundreds of emails poured in, from veterans, teachers, single moms, elderly couples, people who thought they were alone in being harassed by power-hungry, self-appointed neighborhood leaders. Turns out we were the first to stand, but not the last. The court date was set for mid-November, and it wouldn't just be about her, it would be about every person she manipulated, about a system that allowed her to build a private police force with zero oversight, about how easily perception can be twisted into power when people are too polite or too scared to say no. I was asked to testify. I agreed, because while Karen had tried to rule Eagle Ridge like a fiefdom, we had taken it back, with light, with law, with each other. I couldn't sleep. Too many memories. The kick of my door. The crying neighbor 2 houses down who hadn't seen her garden since Karen fined her for visual overgrowth. The way those fake officers fumbled their rifles like toys. And my wife's lavender, still blooming, though the bush was smaller now, scorched by the raid. I sat on the porch with a coffee in my hand, and a thought crossed my mind. This isn't just about a woman named Karen. It's about a culture that lets people believe power is something you take, not something you earn. I woke to a note taped to my porch. It wasn't a threat. It was from Ruth, the elderly woman who once cried during the HOA meetings. Thank you for not running, for staying, for showing us how, and taped to the bottom, a small clipping of lavender. I walked into the courthouse wearing my late wife's favorite cufflinks. Not for luck, not for ceremony, but because when you testify against tyranny dressed up as neighborly concern, you wear something that reminds you why you're doing it. Lavender, justice, peace. None of those come easy. Karen was seated between 2 high-priced lawyers in a navy blue blazer, hair stiff with spray, lips pursed like she was about to ask to see the manager of the entire judicial system. She didn't look at me, but the courtroom did. Every seat packed. Dozens more watching via live stream in overflow rooms. Reporters, survivors, deputies. Even Kyle, her former commander, sat in the back row, a blank expression on his face. The judge was federal. That meant stakes were high, and the charges conspiracy to commit fraud. impersonation of federal agents, domestic terror threats, RICO predicate offenses involving multiple parties, financial coercion and digital fraud, armed impersonation of law enforcement. This wasn't about HOA rules anymore. This was about who has the right to declare themselves judge, jury, and street cop without the law behind them. They called me on the second day. I took the oath, sat down, looked across the room at Karen, and began. I moved to Eagle Ridge for peace, but what I found was fear wrapped in neighborhood paper. I walked them through the lavender bush, the fake citations, the night of the raid, the split door, the 6 enforcers who couldn't even spell jurisdiction right on their own forms, the terror in Mrs. Alvarado's voice, the stunned baton they dropped on my floor. I told them how Karen sold fear as order, sold silence as security. They didn't kick in my door because I was a threat. They kicked it in because I refused to play along. Her lawyers tried to paint it as a neighborhood overreach. They blamed her lieutenants, claimed she was manipulated, that she believed her actions were protected under community sovereignty. But the evidence didn't bend. The recording, the uniforms, the fake patrol manuals, the GoPro footage of her commanding a door breach while sipping Starbucks from the passenger seat of a black SUV. The jury didn't take long. After 4 hours, the verdict came in, guilty, on all counts. The judge didn't hold back. You created a private militia under the pretense of lawn care. You impersonated law enforcement. You terrorized civilians. And you dared to weaponize community trust. I sentence you to 24 years in federal prison. No parole before 18. Restitution ordered in full. You will have no further access to community leadership in any form. Karen sobbed, but this time no one comforted her, because she had built her throne on fear, and fear doesn't mourn you when it's gone. Weeks passed. The door to my home has been repaired, but I left the split hinge on display, mounted next to the lavender bush, now fully grown again, thriving despite the scorch marks. We had a mural painted over Karen's old HOA command post wall. It shows neighbors of every age, race, and background linked arm in arm. Above them, a bold line, no one owns a neighborhood. I was offered a leadership role in the county. Declined. I told them I didn't want a title. I wanted to be a neighbor, but I helped them draft new protections, a ban on armed community enforcement units, mandatory transparency on any neighborhood governing body, a hotline for reporting HOA abuse. It's called the Eagle Ridge Act now, passed 9-0 by the county board. Karen's legacy buried under real reform. People still ask me what I learned. Here's what I tell them. Power unchecked is always dangerous, even if it's wrapped in suburban politeness, even if it's labeled compliance. You don't need a badge to be dangerous. You just need a lie that no one questions. So if you're reading this in a neighborhood like mine, and someone says they can fine you, arrest you, or enter your home without real legal backing, ask for proof. Stand tall. Don't let politeness keep you powerless. Because the real community, it doesn't fine you for flowers. It stands with you when your door gets kicked in. And it fights not with force, but with truth. What would you have done if it were your door? Let's talk about justice, power, and what it really means to protect a neighborhood. Share your thoughts, speak your truth, help someone else stand.